While standing directly in front of one of 5 elevators at work, I was asked what makes you think it's going to be that one, to which I responded very seriously, I always know, right as the doors opened and made me look like some sort of wizard. What are you best? That's right, I'm a Jedi. Moments. Outside on break at work when it started to thunderstorm, the woman I was talking to asked why it had to storm now. I jokingly said it was all my doing and snapped my fingers, immediately followed by bright lightning and really loud thunder. I thought she was going to crap herself. Just posted the story a couple of weeks ago, but what the heck, it's a good story. One time I had a girl in my car that I really liked and wanted to impress. Now, this was in the late 1980s when CD players in cars were really new. I had a custom installation that worked pretty well, but it had some flaws. In particular, I had to hit the play button whenever I turned on the car. Then the amp wouldn't kick in for about 30 seconds, for some reason. So I was in the habit of hitting the play button ASAP as I turned on the car, so the tunes would start up. So we get in my car, a Mustang convertible, at the time, and as usual, I hit the play button as soon as I started the car. But having done this literally hundreds of times, I was very fast and fluent at it, and the girl didn't even notice that I had done it. So we pulled away, driving down Pacific Coast Highway in Southern California along the ocean, as I recall. So the girl says, "Hey, how about some music?" I knew the amp was just about to kick in, so without even glancing at her, I snapped my fingers in front of the CD player. The timing was perfect. The music immediately started up. My expression never changed, like I expect magic things to happen at the snap of my fingers all the time. She just stared at the CD player, stared at me, then just shook her head with a little laugh. I felt like the smoothest king of the smooth people. This was the story I thought of when I read the post. I'm glad you posted it again. On the tennis court, I'm about 3 courts away from the basket of tennis balls. When I take a ball out, say loudly to my friend, "And now, I will take this ball, and I will serve it into the basket." I toss a ball up and hit it in the general direction of the basket. Crap goes straight into the basket like a guided missile. The look on his face as I was elevated to godlike status was amazing. We were jumping around a little after that. I totally read that as the basketball of tennis balls and pictured a giant bouncy tennis ball. I was sitting in my brother's apartment and this big fly came buzzing into the room. He said, "That frickin' fly has been driving my crazy for 2 days." Before he had even finished saying it, I reached out into the air and grabbed the fly. Then without saying a word, walked over to the window and let it go outside. Then sat back down and continued the conversation. You need to master this technique using chopsticks. I dropped a beer bottle once at a party and caught it with my foot, without spilling a drop. It was completely on reflex, and I know for a fact I couldn't do it now if I tried. But for the rest of the night I got accused of being a ninja and it felt pretty awesome. Cook dropped a plate of food and I managed to catch it before it hit the ground without a single piece of food falling from the plate. Graceful like a swan. Mother. Swans are loud, awkwardly long-necked honking beasts which reportedly taste delicious. I've never understood why they are the symbol of grace. When my son was about 8 months old, I Jedi mind tricked him to sleep. It was about 2:30 in the morning and he was very angry and very tired. I said, "Noah, it's time you went to sleep," and waved my hand in front of his face. As soon as my hand went over his face, he was asleep. It was amazing, but my wife didn't believe me when I told her the next morning. Sometimes I pick up the phone and fix problems instantly. Example, "Hello, sits service desk. How may I help?" "Oh, hi there. I was. Oh, sorry. What's the issue?" "Oh, don't worry, it works." "Okay, thanks." I worked in an arcade for a while, and this effect was localized to one single game tech named Larry. When machines would break down without explanation, we would all spend hours tweaking around with them. Sure enough, Larry would walk over and start it up without incident. Those machines would then be marked with an AOL sticker, standing for Afraid of Larry. I feel like this has got to be pretty common. but I always try to guess where the train doors are going to stop, or subway or similar railed vehicle. I'll pick a spot and stand next to the platform edge, and when the train comes whooshing up, everyone does that slow shuffle towards where it looks like the nearest door will stop. When it works, I end up with a sudden crowd around me, and the center of the door's right in front of me, without moving a muscle. I doubt anyone notices or cares, but I take significant satisfaction in it. As a train driver, I can say this is very common, but as a train driver, I like to stop in a spot that is a few meters from normal to make people like you upset. I was in 9th grade, and I had just gotten a digital watch. I spent an unhealthy amount of time making sure that my watch was perfectly synced to the school's clock, which was displayed on the classroom's television mounted in the corner. Since that clock didn't show the seconds, I would sit there, watch in hand, waiting for the moment the minute number jumped forward. When it did, I would immediately alter the time on my watch as well. So one day during English class, we were talking about when we get out of class. I don't know why, but the discussion got kind of heated. For such a stupid subject, one kid was adamantly insisting that we wouldn't get out for at least 2 minutes, but I know, from glancing at my watch, that we were going to get out in 12 seconds. I told him that, and he just scoffed. So I started counting down. 5. He just laughed at me. 4. People stopped talking and looked at me. 3. Students started rotating in their seats to look at the time. 2. I started to get nervous. What if I was wrong? 1. Silence within the area we were sitting in. Butterflies in my stomach. The kid's expression suddenly turning nervous. And then a half second of time when I started panicking about being wrong and never living this down. When the bell rang. I used to be a goalkeeper at high school. I'm from Brazil. Me and my fellow teammates, my friends, were joking and playing with the soccer balls before a match, and for some reason I was doing fake karate kung fu stances and moves. I was facing the goal, most my friends were behind the goal, and did a punch move only to repel an incoming ball my friend kicked to hit me in the back. It was pretty sweet. Whenever a new person gets into my car, at some point during the drive I'll start singing some random classic oldie song. Then I give my passenger the old watch this look as I change the radio to the oldies station, as if I know the song I was singing would be playing. This has worked for me once in my entire life, and damn it did I feel like an absolute legend. It is exceptionally easy to do this with Bohemian Rhapsody. I dodged a paintball once, Matrix style, leant back as I saw it coming and it flew gracefully over my head. Then I got shot in the balls, but for a third of a second I was God. I caught a paintball once. I was signaling to a teammate and got shot in the palm and my hand collapsed around it. It was cheap paint so it didn't break. Looked pretty bad, but as it looked like I reached out and plucked it from midair. I wouldn't recommend doing that though, since it leaves a pretty nasty welt and hurts like a mother. You can tell when a red light is about to turn green by looking at the don't walk light lateral to it. It begins to flash right before the light changes. When I would be at a red light when my kids were little, I'd hold my hands out and say green and it would turn. They thought I was a god. Now they roll their eyes at me. I learned this from my dad. If you can see the light to your left right, about 2 seconds after they turn red from being green, generally your light will turn green. My dad used to always make a gun with his hand and shoot the light to make it green. I now do this. I was walking through the 7-Eleven with my friends one day when for some reason, a small package of food started to fall off of the shelf next to us. Without thinking or even turning my head, I instantly reach my hand out, and the package lands perfectly in my hand. I am Spider-Man. I've done that once or twice. It's so awesome. One time was a shampoo bottle that was falling in the shower that I grabbed behind my back in the middle of washing my hair. It was amazing. Unfortunately, since I was in the shower, no one was around to see it, I hope. I went to IM one of my friends, and for some reason decided to start the conversation with "that's what she said," completely out of the blue. Apparently he was typing a complaint about his work to me at the same time, so literally less than a second after I hit enter my friend sent "man this is so hard." For about 6 lines after that, I kept writing random lines and they all worked. It was something like, "me, that's what she said. Him. Man, this is so hard. Me. Because I'm a wizard. Him. How did you do that? Me. Creepily awesome. Him. Okay, that's creepy. Him. WTF, logs off. It only ever happened once, but once was enough. Okay, here's mine. Freshman year in high school and I was absolutely failing because I hadn't submitted 2 essays, each worth 50 points. We are in the Shakespeare block of the class and the teacher has given us the assignment of memorizing a monologue that is at least 10 lines long. For every line after the 10th you will get a single point of extra credit. Now, my memory has always been pretty good and I needed these extra points to not fail. So naturally I chose the longest monologue in the play, The Friar's Rant at Romeo, 109 lines. Of course, being me, I neglected to do even the rudimentary practice of reading the fricking play. So I have some classmates on the bus with me the day of presentations and they ask me what I am going to recite. My words exactly were, "Holy frick, is that today?" I then proceeded to read the monologue as many times as I could, knowing full well that I am screwed. English is my first class that day. My teacher has me go forth and as I walk up to the front of the class I can hear the kids from the bus telling the other people in class that I haven't prepared at all except on the bus. I neglected to mention that also suffer from extreme stage fright. So naturally I am almost paralyzed with the fear of speaking to my whole class, especially since I don't know my lines. As I look out on the expectant faces of my teacher and class, I know only one thing that will snap me out of it. I slap myself in the face hard, and then suddenly, magic, the friar's lines come pouring out of my mouth like a veritable fountain of incrimination. The disdain felt for Romeo is palpable in the room. I finish the entire monologue and look up and see the stunned faces of my class and teacher. If I had grown wings and sprouted 3 pairs of hairy breasts from my back, they would not have been more surprised. I sit back down at my desk like nothing happened and finish that class with a B+. My teacher's comment on my grading slip is that I should try out for the play immediately. TL. DR memorized and recited 109 lines of Romeo and Juliet on a 10-minute bus ride to bring my grade from an F to a B+. Definitely not best, but worst. Still, Jedi. So I was hanging with a new friend. I was a freshman in high school that I had just met that semester. She was funny, cute, happy. Well, one day we're over at a friend's house jumping on his trampoline. When we go in for some lemonade, we're sitting around laughing, and she gets a phone call. We hush up so she can hear. Her face goes from a chill happiness to a straight face. She hangs up the phone. I look at her and I say, "What's the matter? Grandma die?" She couldn't hold it in. Tears burst and she booked it out of the room. Her grandma had just died, and I made a Jedi joke about it. The summer I was 18. I was a lifeguard at a swimming pool. One day me and my colleagues get wind that Sum 41 would be performing in a nearby city. I was an avid fan at the time, and so made up my mind to go. Little did I know 2 of the girls I worked with were also fans, and managed to book off the date. We didn't have a lot of staff, and so because they booked off before me, their request was accepted. Mine wasn't. A few weeks go by. The day before the concert, the girls thought it would be in good taste to come tease me about it. Ha 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 ha. Have a good day at work tomorrow, crap like that. I was annoyed, but a good enough sport not to take it to heart. So I answered, "You're going to get there, and they won't even play. Something terrible is going to happen just to rain on their parade." Sure enough, Sum 41 cancelled their performance due to the lead singer injuring his back. Next time we all worked together, it was as if I was personally responsible for the accident. TL. DR. I accidentally cursed Sum 41. Was driving in the car listening to XM radio, told my friend what the next song was gonna be and it came on, was pretty shocked myself. Stuff like this can be put down to subconsciousness. The radio presenter could have said, "Get ready to turn your radio up because we're going to have some AC/DC right after the news." Then the news comes on for 5 minutes, and you subconsciously remember AC/DC is about to come on. I used to work for Adopt a Pet as one of those annoying guys you hate collecting money for the shelter on street corners. We always worked with partners or in 3S or 4S covering all the parts of the intersection, and one day when the workday ended and we were headed back to the van to head back home, I legitimately just felt something off and I grabbed a girl I was working with when she was about to cross the street, in a crosswalk with the sign reading walk in the light red. Just then around the corner sped an SUV and several police cruisers that would have murdered her. She was quite grateful. Too bad she was 15. When I'm too lazy to get up to get something, I'll just say the force will get it for me and be annoying about it. Eventually a friend will just bring it to me, to which I reply, the force has a strong effect on the weak-minded. My wife and I have an informal pact that goes, if I'm sitting down and I squint and make the Jedi telekinesis hand at something you are walking past, you must pick it up and make it float over to my hand without acknowledging you had any role in said process. One time I perfectly predicted the Simpsons couch gag. It was the Monty Python foot one. Just as the couch comes into view I say foot, and like magic, the foot comes down, crushing the Simpsons family. I'm the mama of a toddler, 3yo, and anybody with kids can tell you that this will hone your reflexes to a sharp point. I can catch dropped objects in an instant, without looking, much like Jolie and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This is only particularly impressive when the dropped object is a full drink, but whatever. I'm also an expert at dodging thrown objects and navigating Lego strewn rooms with amazing speed and agility. Oh, and the whole mom has eyes in the back of her head thing? It's because you learn to hear that crap. I can hear the snack container in the pantry being opened from the laundry room with the washer and dryer running. Don't even try it. Driving in the car with my sister. Music was playing and she said, "We haven't heard from mom all day." I told her she'd be calling any minute. The next minute her phone rang. It was my mom. She was floored. I do something similar where when my phone rings before looking at it I say, "What's my mother want now?" She is the only person who ever calls me. I was talking to the guy next to me in lecture one day before class started, just chatting about how the class was going. Moments before, the guy in front of my seat propped his guitar against his seat and left the room for the bathroom or vending machine. I assumed. It should be noted that I had the aisle seat, paying no attention to his guitar, and still talking to dude next to me. I suddenly see something falling sideways in front of me and into the aisle. Without thinking, I quickly propped my leg up and caught his guitar on the lower portion of my shin. It would have hit the aisle stairs pretty hard. I put it back against his seat and gathered myself. He came back right as lecture started, so I never mentioned it, which made it look like I do these kinds of things fairly often. I felt pretty ninja until I had to start taking notes. I believed you right up until the taking notes part. Playing SSBB with friends 2v2 and my partner was out and I had 1 life left. 2v1 now equals no chance. I was playing with Captain Falcon, who I am terrible at, and they had a combined 3 lives and were both historically better than me. I said sarcastically, "How much you wanna bet I can win with just Falcon punches?" 5 minutes later I accepted my $20. Still to this day don't know how I pulled it off. Still to this day don't know how I pulled it off with Falcon punches. Not my story, but my dad was out fly fishing and there were a bunch of other guys fishing in the same area. My dad was just joking around and told them they weren't doing it right. "You have to call them out," he said, and then started saying things like "here fishy 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 d," and the guys probably thought he was crazy, but he hooked a fish like right after, smiled, and walked off. It's a bit more amusing taking into context that my dad is Chinese and about 5'2" while those other guys were 6-foot bearded manly men. I was telling a story to some friends and another friend wanted me to shut up, so he threw a closed Swiss Army knife at my head from a direction I wasn't looking. Right at that moment I was moving my hand in the "these are not the droids" motion and I blocked it. I didn't even slow down the story. I finished it and just looked at him. Would have been cooler if it had been an open Swiss Army knife and you caught it mid-air, then started using it to peel an apple or something. I dunno. At a baseball game with my cousin, we're sitting in the outfield. I look at him and tell him, "The next hit's coming our way." 2 pitches later, I catch a home run ball. "Cousin, holy crap, how did you do that?" I speak the dialogue in movies and TV shows before I've heard it. So much of it is so predictable. Setups that line up a mile away. Dead lighters. I say a fake prayer to the fake god of lighters. Very solemn. Then try to light it. 9 times out of 10 it ignites, just the once, to light my cigarette. Then when I hand it back to its frustrated owner it doesn't work again. It sounds cool but actually I've discovered it annoys the crap out of people. I was in Las Vegas with a few friends and we were walking around the casino floor looking for a game to play. We were passing a roulette wheel when I stopped and was staring at the number board of previous spins. I do this for about 2-3 spins, then quickly put down money on one of the thirds. Spin ends. I win $600 and casually keep walking. A coworker commented how she had a sneeze coming on right before she could. I blurted out, "Look up at the ceiling and say pineapple." She did, and suddenly lost the urge to sneeze. Her eyes got really wide and she slowly turned her head to look at me with amazement. "How did you do that? Are you a witch?" Then she gave me the squinty-eyed fry face and stood there, skeptical. This might never get seen, but I thought it was pretty cool. I was at a mall once and there was this old bingo number picker machine thing on display. You know, you turn the crank and all the balls with the bingo numbers shuffle around until one gets picked. A girl I was friends with was turning it and told me to guess a bingo number. I guess the first number that came to mind. It was like I-20 or some crap like that. Sure enough, when the ball falls out of the cage and she reads it, it was I-20. She was amazed. 1 month later I start dating her. TLDR. Guessed a bingo number correctly. Resulted in wooing a girl. I was in class once and 2 guys were throwing a hacky sack across the room. I was in the middle reading a book completely oblivious to what was happening. A friend wanted to ask me something and I held my hand out to say hold on a second. At the exact same time one of the throwers who was kind of a dong decided to huck the hacky sack at me. As I put my hand out he threw it and I just caught it on reflex. Then I looked at him without saying a word and put the hacky sack in my pocket. I work at a job where we have to use RF scanners for practically everything. Sometimes they work perfect, sometimes not at all. Also some work better than others. I was at this job for like 2 months so I was still the new guy and as I came in to relieve the person working I picked up my favorite one and she said that one hasn't worked all day. It won't even turn on. I told you just gotta show it a little love and rubbed on it. Then I turned it on. Worked perfect. Win. I know everyone has caught a dodgeball between their legs. I caught 2 at the same time. One between the knees and the other when someone aims for your groin and you double over at just the right time. Just about everyone pointed like I had 3 heads. I was the man. I bike commute and since I constantly battle traffic, I know the exact sequence and timing of every stoplight I ride through. As the last light before mine was changing to red, I stood up on my pedals to get ready to go. Some guy in his car next to me yelled red lights are for bikes. 2 I yelled back what red light as I rode through the now green light. Have you ever played the board game Wits and Wagers? It's a trivia game where every answer is a number. It might be a fraction or a date or some huge number. Whatever. I was playing with my family and we were on the last round. I had to pee, so I wrote down a number on my card before I heard the question, bet all my chips on myself, and left the room. I had written 1989. The question was, when did the first episode of Seinfeld air? I got the question right and won the game. I had 2 incidents while watching the same game of Wheel of Fortune. I got one puzzle with only 1 letter up and the next one without any letters. Blew my parents' mind. Not me but my uncle. We are at the lake standing in the water when a dragonfly starts buzzing around my uncle's head. He lets out a higher and karate chops the dragonfly out of the air and it lands on the pier. Without skipping a beat he exclaims, "My kung fu is strong." I laughed my butt off in amazement. The dragonfly got back up and flew away after it took a few minutes to collect itself. I used to watch Jeopardy alone and memorize some of the more difficult answers, then watch the rerun of that episode the next day in the afternoon. No one seemed to figure out that they reran last night's episode. Nice try, Phil Connors. I have the unfortunate combination of being equal parts smart and lazy. This has led me to develop some minimal effort skills along the way. For example, I've gotten entirely too good at seeing the trajectory of something being thrown at me, and instead of reaching out to catch it like most normal people, I just wait for the object to drop to roughly hand level and really just let it fall in my hand more than actually catching it. Ends up looking rather ninja, but really I just can't be asked to move that much. Hey, you could be dumb and lazy, like my friend. I've convinced several people at work I have advanced situational awareness and raised perception that I use to see around corners. They don't realize that I'm using the reflection from the domed mirror covering the security camera by my office. Either way, I'm also invisible when nobody is looking and can teleport where nobody is around and nobody is looking for me. I was really into doing magic tricks for about 5 or 6 years between high school and college. One day when I was with my sister, I pulled out a deck of cards and said, "Hey, pick any card." She did, then put it back in. I shuffled and started looking through them. After about half of the deck, I pulled out her card. She said it was just luck or a false shuffle, so I had her do it again. The second time, instead of having her put it back in, I just closed my eyes and named it. Baffled, she made me do it again. I said, "Fine. This time, don't pick a card. Just think of one." When she was ready, I stared hard like I was concentrating and reading her mind. After a few seconds, I named the exact card for the third time in a row. At that point, she was freaked out and didn't want me to do it again. I knew lots of pick a card, any card tricks, but I didn't use any of them those 3 times. I just got really lucky, but combined with all the other illusions I'd showed her before, I think she thought I really had magic powers. TLDR. I convinced my sister that I really had magic powers by guessing her card 3 times in a row without any actual sleight of hand or tricks. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.